Hi friends, today we are going to start a very interesting and unique topic for us, and that's the topic of soil health. And we may not know much about the soil health, but we know something about human health and how it's defined. Before 1948, WHO definition of human health was actually lack of disease. So that's all it was known, lack of disease. So it was a very rudimentary definition, and since then we have done so much of scientific advancements in human health. So much has gone into learning what our inner chemistry is. Same has happened to the soil as well. So I thought that it was, once if we understand much about human health, we can understand about soil health. And an example comes to my mind is the disease called epilepsy. So it's a disease that happens if there is increased activity of neuronal transmission in the brain. So it's hyperactivity of neurons is a seizure. It's an epilepsy. But in the 1500s, 1600s, and before that, it was considered as a disease when devil possesses you, get that disease. In the 1800s, late 1800s, and beginning of 1900s, 1908, phenobarbital was used as a treatment for seizure. So it took so long for us to come to that. And before that, in the 1800s, they used to cut blood veins. So bloodletting was used as a cure because we had no idea how it was happening. We had no idea of the neurotransmitters in the brain or the receptors in the brain. So it took us so much scientific advancements to understand that this is the cause for it. And now we know about different neurohormones that are related in causing epilepsy. So much advancement has happened in the science and in terms of our human health, but we look at the soil health or agriculture industry or gardening, we're still in the 15th century. We have not used that science to actually evolve, because we have evolved in a way in terms of human health, but we have not evolved in terms of plant health, and that's what surprised me a lot. So going further, the latest innovation in um, mental health or epilepsy or any kind of human disease is they have found out that it all goes back to prehistoric ages, from where it all started. Because we are not independent, although human beings have tried their best to become independent and at the top of the food chain, but it doesn't happen that way because we evolved from those unicellular organisms, bacteria. This neurotransmitter, the receptors, the signaling channels, the molecular signaling is still the same way as it used to be millions of years ago, because that's how we have evolved from. And still bacteria play a huge role in our mental health and our physical health as well. Microbiome, let's say, let's not just say bacteria. And I think molecular biology is going to be the science of future for human health, and it's not just for human health, for plant health as well. Molecular biology is going to be the future. So this is where our topic will be revolving around for today. And but the topic is 5 questions that I had, and nobody was able to answer. So the first question is, what is the most important part of the plant? And same with humans. If you ask anyone what is the most important part of your body, they would say brain. Uh, but it's not so. Now they have developed that science has found out that there is a mechanism called gut-brain pathway, where actually the gut bacteria control your brain, which is very interesting. That many mental diseases like anxiety, depression, schizophrenia, epilepsy are from imbalance in glutamate and GABA, gamma aminobutyric acid. These two neurohormones, which is one is inhibitory, one is excitatory, are produced by bacteria, because millions of years ago, billions, 3.5 billion years ago, the bacteria, the unicellular organism, had the enzyme that could change glutamate into GABA, glutamate decarboxylase. Isn't it interesting? The same enzyme that we still are working on these days, GABA and glutamate, were used by bacteria billions of years ago. So, and the plants also have that. Now scientists discovered that whenever the plant is in stress, whenever the plant has injury, whenever the seed is trying to germinate, because it's a big thing, same like childbirth. it has its own pain, it has its own trauma. So whenever that is happening, this GABA, GABA and glutamate, these enzymes, these hormones are in higher levels in those times. So that's the interest. It all goes back to um, neurotransmitters now. And if you ask me what is the most important part of a plant, I would say the part of the plant that is involved in regulating these hormones is the most important part, and it's not the fruit. Although you might say fruit is the most important part of the plant, or the leaves. No, if you cut the fruit, the plant will survive. If you prune the leaves or cut the stem, even if I cut it up to here, it will still grow. But why? Because there is something else happening that we don't see, the roots. So the roots are the most important part of the plant, and if the roots are gone, the plant is gone. So that's something that nobody talks about, because they say that, okay, roots are only used for taking nutrients from the soil, just nitrogen, potassium, phosphorus, microelements. That was the traditional model of agriculture. That's the traditional model of gardening, that roots being used as just for getting nutrients from the soil, or just as an instrument to get nutrients for the plant. It's an outdated gardening model, it's an outdated agriculture model, and that's something, that question is some nobody answered. It's a new thing for me. Question number 2: what is actually the role of the roots then? If it's not just absorbing nutrients, what you feed them from outside, all the fertilizers, so is there any other role of the roots that's important for the plant? Yes, scientists have found out that roots not just absorb, actually they secrete as well. They secrete amino acids, they secrete vitamins, they secrete they call it deposition, or exudates, root exudates. So why would the root that we have been thinking for hundreds of years that it's used for just for absorption would be secreting, and for whom? Who is there in the soil that the roots are giving all these sugars and amino acids and vitamins and nutrients for? You will have to understand that soil doesn't just have roots of plants. It's a living world down there. It has millions of microbiomes. There is a love affair going on between the bacteria and fungi in the soil and the roots. So the roots is giving nutrients to the bacteria and the fungi is helping the roots absorb all the nutrients from the soil. So it's like a cycle. It's like nobody is trying to harm anyone. It seems like they are interdependent upon each other. So that's actually the role of the roots, not just absorbing, but also keeping this symbiosis alive. So plants give nutrients to the bacteria and fungi in turn help the plant in many ways that we can't understand. One would be helping the plant during the stress, helping the plant during drought or flooding, helping the plant give more immunity, disease resistance, and also productivity, like be more productive. So it's like more like a symbiotic relationship going on there. We'll get into that later, but that's more of the role of the roots, that it's the leaves of the plant. By photosynthesis, it absorbs energy, it becomes carbon, and the carbon is excreted by the roots, which we call root exudates. And it's not just carbon, it's it's many other nutrients as well. If there are no microbiomes in the soil, like let's say someone thinks that they don't have to care about the microbiome in the soil at all, like bacteria and fungi in the soil at all, they will just keep on giving nitrogen and fertilizers, then the carbon eventually degrades. It's in an unstable form. It doesn't stay in the stable form. So down the years, there will not be any carbon in the soil. So the soil will be a dysfunctional soil, is what we call it. That's what exactly the role of the roots are. It's not just for absorption, but it's also, they are like a conduit for the symbiotic relationship between the plant and the microorganism world that is down there, and they help each other, just like good friends would do, just like good lovers would do. So it's if you cut that relationship, you are practically killing the plant and devoiding it of all the richness of life. So question number 3 comes is, what are these microbiomes? What are these fungi and bacteria in the soil? And they are not new. They have been here for billions of years. They came before us. They came before the plants. They started as unicellular organisms. So they have been here the longest. They have been the wisest. They have known all the cellular mechanism, all the transmitters, molecular signaling. They are the experts in it. And because every organism in this earth, in this world, in this universe wants to survive, so their survival mechanism is evolved around this molecular signaling, this biochemical signaling. So microbiomes are this group of organisms, which could be bacteria, could be fungi, could be protists. So all these are specific to a specific plant. Let's say this bougainvillea. So under the roots, around the roots, which we call that space is called rhizosphere, where all the roots are exudating, all the root exudates and everything, it attracts certain microbiomes towards the roots. So this plant will have certain microbiomes, certain aggregates of bacteria and fungi around it, and this plant is in symbiotic relationship with those bacteria and fungi. So this plant here, this Lipia alba, around its roots will have a different microbiome. So the microbiomes, the bacteria and fungi which one tree has around it is not the same as the other tree. And as I discussed earlier, the microbiomes actually help they have evolved through the millions of years in a way that they use the plant exudate, they use the nutrients provided by the plant roots, and they provide a lot more to the plant itself. And when it comes to drought tolerance, flood tolerance, disease resistance, productivity, so and then it goes back to the same way. The way they do it is by changing the molecular biology of the plant itself. So there's a lot of research going on and a lot of papers written on it. We will share those papers down in the link, but the gist of it is that the microbiomes are in the soil and they're specific to each plant, and they help the plant in numerous ways. Question number 4, how do these microbiomes help in plant productivity, in disease resistance, and in stress tolerance? Very important question, and same goes to us as well. Our gut microbiome, there's a lot of bacteria in our gut. Now they have found out that lactobacillus can be taken, it's a probiotic, to increase the level of GABA, the neurohormone, and increased levels of that will decrease our stress level, decrease our anxiety and depression. So you know how it is, and a less depressed, less anxious person will be more productive, will have more clarity in life, will have a better relationship. Same with the plants. A healthy microbiome in the soil will have the plant become more productive, less stressed, more disease tolerant. But the thing is that we cannot segregate one plant and just say this is it, because we live in a place where there are hundreds of plants around. So one question comes to mind is, if there are different microbiomes around the roots of different plants, will they compete with each other? There will be a competition if we plant different plants together? What scientists have found out that it's actually the opposite way. If there are similar microbiomes, they have nothing to gain from each other, because their functioning is the same, the thing they provide to the plant is the same. So similar microbiomes, they actually compete with each other because they are not giving any new input to the plant. So that's why now they are discouraging monoculture, like putting one plant in a row, like all mangoes in a row or all sugar canes in a row. They used to do that because they thought their requirements are same, like they all like less nitrogen, so let's put all the trees in one place, or they all like more water, flooding, so put all the sugar canes in one place. But that's only if we look from the perspective of us being the center of the plant's life. The plant already knows what's good for their life, and the microbiomes are more intelligent than plants. They're the ones that are living under the soil. So there is so much intelligence there. If we just cut that intelligence and do it our way, we can do like that. But they have found out that it's less productive. There will be so much disease. There will be organizations like these pesticide companies that would be at the top of your food cycle. So you know, we have allowed that because we have gone to that monoculture. Now scientists have developed this new way of looking at things, that they have found out that different plant species which are not related, they will have different microbiome around their rhizosphere, which is the space around the roots. And this different microbiomes actually help each other because they are bringing different inputs to the whole system there. Like, let's say for example, there's a certain plant that's in the shade here. You know, this plant is in the shade and it's a sun-loving plant, and it's not getting enough photosynthesis, so it doesn't have much carbon. So what it does is, if there is a healthy network underneath, a plant that is getting enough sunlight, the roots, the rhizosphere is their rhizosphere is connected by a network of fungus and the network of bacteria down in the soil, and that fungi actually helps channel carbon from that plant which has more photosynthesis to the plant that has less because it doesn't have enough sun exposure. So that happens, and it's mutual, and it's almost like, you know, let's say a society which has only doctors looks like the best thing to do. Oh, I will only put NPK. It's the same thing, like, you know, the input is one and it doesn't work. The society doesn't function. It only functions when there is variety, when there is diversity. Some are plumbers, some are electricians, some are doctors, some are engineers, some are politicians, some are... So, you know, when there is variety, they all have their roles and each help each other, and that same happens under the soil as well. When there is variety of crops planted together, like different species, the more species the better. They are not actually competing for nutrients, but actually they have a healthier microbiome underneath because each contribute differently. And sometimes a drought tolerant plant that is close to a plant that is not drought tolerant may help it, because the microbiomes associated with drought tolerant plant may be able to help. How? Because now I found out that by studying so much research, that microbiomes are not just around the roots. There are endophytic microbiomes that actually go through the roots, penetrate the roots, reach to the stem and to the leaves. And there are also microbiomes in the air. But what they do is they increase the cell wall thickness in the plants by changing the molecular biology. And when the cell wall becomes thickened, it is more tolerant to drought. So it's just an example, you know, how the morphology of the plant can be even changed by microbiomes so that it can tolerate. And what is the benefit? You would ask, like, you know, the American way of, so what's my gain in it? The gain is that if the plant survives, the microbiomes also survive, because the microbiome are getting so much nutrients from the plant. So they want the plant to survive so that they can keep on getting the nutrients from the roots of the plants. But to do that, they have to make the plant more disease resistant and tolerant, in which they will do. So it's more of a symbiotic relationship. So coming to the last question of soil health, now we know that, you know, microbiomes are the central part of this whole plant life, and soon we will find out that they are the central part of our health as well. Although we are constantly giving antibiotics, antifungals and antivirals with the plant, now we already found out that these microbiomes play a key role in everything. But the question comes is, how do we make microbiomes? Then we have this Florida soil, sandy soil. We say, oh, my soil is dead. I can't really think about microbiomes. I can't really talk about soil health and all these bokashi and all the biodynamic farming when my soil is so poor. All I can do is grow fruits in a couple of years, and the way to do is put a slow release fertilizer around the plant, or do some foliar spray of micros, and that should take care of itself. That's very pessimistic. and you are right, you cannot make microbiomes in the lab, because microbiomes are everywhere. It's not that you have to make in the lab. They are in the soil already. What's lacking is your root system is not making those exudates that attract a certain microbiome towards itself, that will help it stronger. So now the gardening of the future generation is more going towards what they call it biased rhizosphere creation. So what is, obviously you are biased, you want that specific plant to be the most disease resistant, more productive, but that biasness is on your part, and what you do is you put biochemicals that actually attract those microbiomes. It's called biostimulants. They are called biostimulants. They are not fertilizers. Forget about chemical fertilizers. I won't go into how chemical fertilizers are causing plant to be in permanent drug addiction mode. I'm also not going right now about biological fertilizers. Sometimes the biofertilizers, which are also called mycorrhizae, are used to give a kickstart. Once you give a kickstart, you create the plant roots to become more activated, and then it starts to secrete all those root exudates and start to attract the microbiomes. Microbiomes are already there. They are not in the active form in your sand, in your soil. Your sand can be created into gold soil in a couple of years if you focus more on activation of these microbiomes in the soil. And the activation happens with root exudates. And the root exudates, the more root exudates of different varieties, the better. So all goes in a couple of things that you need to do. Yes, you cannot make in the lab, but what you can do is interplant different species, because different species of plants will have different root exudates, will have different microbiomes. So it's already creating a richer microbiome, a richer biomass in the soil. Start researching what is good, what is not. There are some microbiomes which actually are inhibitory for the plant as well if the harmony is broken. And the harmony can be broken if if you destroy the soil microbiome that's already there. That's why there is so much of encouragement in using the native soil. It's not that the native soil is rich or in nutrients or anything. It's the native soil might be rich in microbiomes that's already there, and the plant can activate, the native plants can activate those microbiomes around. So that's all these 5 different questions. I hope I could cover a lot, and I know it's going to be a long video, but I thought it would be something that would interest you, something that would make you curious about learning about this more. So we will put a lot of links in our description as to recent studies and research that has been done on soil health. It's a constantly evolving study. It seems like next year we might have different knowledge about it. If we want to get stuck in the 1950s, that's perfectly fine. We can still do, because people are still eating mangoes and longans and lychees grown the way they used to, and nothing wrong. People do complain about citrus greening, and it has been found out that if you do this way, the citrus greening bacteria is not going to get killed, but the plant is finding different ways to absorb those nutrients. The citrus greening will be there. I'm not saying that if you there won't be, because we are not using the anti-pest. We're not using the pesticide for the citrus greening here. We are just helping the plant to find other ways of absorbing the nutrients that would have prevented the plant because of the citrus greening. And it happens in nature all the time. We just have to help and support a little bit. Same with the heart. I have found out that many times when we go and do angiography of the heart, certain part of the heart dies, but then with time there will be laterals that come and start providing blood to the same place. So whenever there is stress, let the plant find out its own way, instead of start putting copper or putting water, like constantly watering the plant because it's not. Let the roots go a little deeper. Let the root get that stress or drought stress, so that it will start attracting microbiomes that help in that stress. I'm not saying completely let it die, but I'm just saying that a little bit is always good. It's same like with the vaccine of coronavirus. Like a little bit of a little bit of disease is there, so that our body develops immunity. If you give the whole dose, then we will die. That's why we don't want the plant to go all the way to death, but we want it to get stressed and not interfere in the beginning, so that let the plant. And in our garden, if you come here and watch, you can see that everything is planted everywhere. And if you don't understand what I just talked about, you will just not know what is going on here. You will just see an overgrown garden here. So I'm learning, constantly learning. It don't take my words as an authority. Take with a pinch of take with a grain of salt. And my role here is just to excite you to learn something new, just to give you a spark of curiosity so that you embark on this journey. Because if you don't, we will be 100 years behind in soil health. So hopefully you enjoyed this video. If you have questions, and I want questions from you, because we want to make more videos like this, especially with question and answers. But if I see no curiosity in you or no questions, I would not be motivated to make new videos. We have more than 700 subscribers now, so hopefully we will get many questions and we can make more videos with more real life experience questions. These are more theoretical when I talk, but when you ask pertaining to your garden, those questions will be more beneficial for you, for me, for everyone. So please ask us, don't be shy, don't hesitate. Please put in your positive questions. Criticism is good, negative, positive, both, but please don't waste your time watching the whole video and saying something that takes us back 100 years. So thank you very much for watching.